go on mute if I'm going to complain about the yarn.
You're being recorded.
I just don't understand the skeins that do this, where they're like, let's wrap it in a bunch of weird places and then have strings that are really long. Such pain. And then you have one string that's going pew, pew, pew. You get
Only
tangled.
yarn I've ever had that happened like that from Anne was the Christmas yarn, was the Festivus, and the fingering in the Festivus was really confusing to me. But otherwise, I've always had really good luck with Anne's.
On one of my baby ones that we're working with for the mystery, one of my mysterious little snuggles, I don't know what I did. I think it was user error in my part. I think I just picked it up wrong. But oh my God, it took me like 45 minutes to do 2 ounces. I was fighting with that thing, taking it off. I actually unwound it twice. It was making me crazy.
Yeah,
and it was the white one too, which was like totally the simplest yarn of all of them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I must have just gotten it, because it was going like this. And it was like, what?
Yeah.
Hey, this is
Do you have a
Geeka.
winder?
Hi, Geeka.
Yeah. I have
I was
this
just
guy
gonna
connected to a winder on the other end. Yeah.
Oh, that thing. What is that thing called?
My Swift.
Yeah.
It's intended to blow the minds of all of the men that I write code with, because they're like, what is that? Yeah. Actually, this is just the only place it fits in the whole house. So that's why it's there. But it still blows their minds, so I keep it.
Yeah. So a lot of ladies have that, huh?
Does
Women understand it. Men seem not to. It's funny.
Highland Spring, I think it's Highland Spring.
It's lovely.
Oh,
It's
okay.
just lovely.
I have to write it down.
That little
And they
decorative
got-
edge, like you said, how is that working? Is that afterwards, or was it?
No, it's done at the same time.
Oh, wow. Oh,
It-
that's
it's-
so
it's-
pretty.
Let me show you the right side.
And the Shetlandia I was talking about was a sport, and it's called the Morit and White Marls.
Okay.
And it's that together. And so it's the sport. So it's not what you use, what Elizabeth used.
I love
Yeah,
the-
I have the sport. I'm going to try to make a sweater. We'll see if I can get gauge for it.
Okay. Let's go back to knitting this shawl and see if I can screw it up anymore.
Hey, y'all, I was gonna say regarding the yarns getting tangled. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What I think that happened to me once, and it almost happened to me a second time. And I figured out, I think, that when I untwisted the skein, there was something about how it was twisted that had the loop, the whole skein. I needed to check it really carefully before I put it around the Swift, because some of it wasn't, it was caught wrong in that little twist. So
Yeah, I think that's what happened to me.
check it carefully when you untwist it, and make sure you have a clean loop before you put it around your Swift.
Yeah. It's especially prone to happening when you get a skein that's only tied in like one place.
Right.
Because then
right.
everybody can get all tangled up with each other. And when they're tied in a couple of places, it's much easier to avoid doing that. But it's actually pretty rare. I think that's why I was so surprised.
I know. So anyway, so I'm going to mute myself again, and I'm probably going to check out because I have to go pack to get on a road trip.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. So I will talk with y'all later. Thanks.
Hi, Geeka.
So I got on a little late. Is Anne not joining us today?
I am not sure. Usually she is here. She could have somebody in the shop.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've missed so many. I thought I better come, even though I've caught up with everything and I've got something in the wash I can't even show you. It's kind of one of those weird days when I'm not actually sitting knitter.
What, which project are you doing for the mystery knit along?
I'm doing the, well, so I'm doing the large cowl. And I'm not completely convinced, and I think I won't be until I finally take it off the needles and see what it really looks like. So I might end up making it and then taking it all out and making a smaller one because it just seems extremely large. But a bunch of people have said that they liked that they could wrap it. And I was sort of thinking about the hood capability, but it just seems like 9 miles long. So I don't know, it might turn out to be too much. But I have it, I'm just in the middle of a ball, but when I'm done with the ball, I'll show you what I have.
Okay. I'm doing the lap blanket and I am really enjoying it.
Oh, that must be nice.
Yeah, it is. I'm really enjoying it.
I debated about the blankets because I just made something for my mother that she really, really liked. And then my father said, oh, I like that. And I thought, oh, a lap blanket maybe would work for him, but
Can you hold it up, Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah. Hang on here. I'm kind of discombobulated at the current time because
Oh, yeah,
I
you're all.
really need to clean out my knitting nest and I'm procrastinating.
oh, that's really pretty.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm
you can
doing
see-
the same one, Elizabeth, the
Oh,
same.
you are? Okay.
Do you think that is this the width? Is this the width or is this the width?
You know, somebody mentioned that the other day that I think the stripes go up and down the length. I think this is the length.
The length,
So I
okay.
think this is the width. However, don't quote me on that because like I said before, my memory is not all that great. And I don't.
It sounded that way from the pattern description.
It does. Okay. But yeah, I'm enjoying it because it's just going to be long enough because I'm short. I'm really short. I mean, I'm like really short. And I always say I'm what is it? I'm vertically challenged and horizontally enhanced. But it's just going to be long enough for me to throw over my legs in the winter when I sit and knit in my recliner because I knit in a recliner. So I'm anxious to have it. And it's going to be for me because I'm a selfish knitter and I rarely do I knit for somebody else. So
Yeah, this is going to be for me too, because I'm always wanting not a full Afghan on my lap, but something.
well,
like-
one thing to keep in mind, because I love garter stitch, but garter stitch is all squishy when you knit it. But when we wet block this, that garter stitch is going to stretch out and it will add to the width. So it will be nice.
I'm counting on that because I'm challenged with legs that never quit. And you know,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
the longest pants you can find are still not long enough. So
Oh,
I'm
my.
hoping
wow.
this covers, I hope it covers my legs proficiently enough. But I know I was playing with it and I thought, oh, this is going to block out even bigger. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'll be
Yeah.
nice.
Here's a segment of my crazy little thing,
Oh, nice. Oh, hang on, I got to mute.
but
Sorry,
it just
Timothy.
goes crazy long. Like there's just miles of it.
How many did you cast on? How many stitches?
It's 288 now.
Okay. Yeah.
That's big.
This is 150 for the lap blanket.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I thought, this is really long. And see how it bunches up?
Yeah.
And it's less weird now because it's getting wider. And so it's not quite so aggressively ruffly. But
Melissa,
it was
this is
weird.
This is my
Oh, yours looks like
large.
mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the large
Yeah.
cowl. But
Oh,
what size
interesting. I
needles
have
are
a
you
small.
using?
8.
8s. What am I using? 8s. Okay. But my
I
lesson-
confess I made no attempt to do anything like a swatch. I just said, I'm going to go. It's a cowl.
Well,
Yeah,
I
this is
did
a
the
small
swatch,
cowl.
so I'm being very careful to make sure I make it tight enough so that it doesn't get bigger. Because that's my usual problem, is my gauge relaxes as I
Oh, yeah.
move
And then
along and
ends up
think
getting floppy.
I want to hurry things along.
Right.
I
I
get a
think I'm
looser
doing
gauge.
okay that way. I
Okay.
think. It's a little hard to tell. But yeah, that is a danger when you start going zooming and then you're like, oh, I probably should have paid attention more. I really like whatever this stuff is. It's number 3, I guess.
Yeah.
It's nice and very different texture than everybody else.
I
I've
love number
actually
1.
used 4 colors too already.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to show you the small cowl, but I gotta get these different stops on so I don't lose it. This is the small cowl. And this end is really rolly on me. Can you see it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
nice. Looks
So
really
it's-
nice.
See, that
And-
seems like it's going to be a really good size.
Yeah. It's just really loosey-goosey around the bottom, so I don't know.
Well, blocking.
And the
Yeah.
small cowl has more width to it. It's
Mm.
supposed to be 13 inches, where the large
Yeah.
cowl.
So you can pull it way up, if you want, over your ears and, go gangster or something.
I had sort of thought I wanted something kind of halfway in between. So I don't know. I'm going to go with this and see what happens. If it
Yeah.
turns out terrible, then I can always tear it out.
Yeah, it's lovely yarn.
It is.
It might be large enough that it would be something that would be more like a cowly shrug that sits around doubled around your neck and your shoulder. Like I've made something like
That's
that
true.
before, that
Mhm.
would be stunning with something that size.
And that would be very nice because in the winter, it's always like the back of my neck and like that's where I get cold. So yeah,
Mhm.
we'll see what it ends up being. I decided to just embrace it while also obsessing, apparently. So I'm saying I'm embracing it, but I'm still like, so has anybody else done the herring weave? I know California Ann, right? You did it.
Catherine did it, didn't you, Catherine?
Oh, Catherine,
I
you
did it. Yeah.
In what?
I did it in the Harrisville Nightshades, and it is perfectly fine, but I wish I had done it in the Kent because the Nightshades, it's great, it's warm, but it's stiff and it's not crazy stiff, but I like my sweaters to have a little bit more flexibility, not more than normal. It just seems like that yarn was a little dense, and it's Cormo, so it just was a little dense. And I did it in really dark. I mean, it's black that's over dyed with green.
With the
So
green, yeah, I remember that.
and it looks amazing. I mean, the cable detail and everything is amazing. But you could totally handle it, Melissa, but I would just caution for advanced knitters. It's one of those ones where you have to do shaping around the shoulders while keeping track of the pattern, which has increase and decrease stitches, even though it doesn't have any yarn overs. But it's fun, and the cable detail on it is really pretty.
Yeah.
I think it would be amazing in Kent or in any of the Finn Dandies or the Jacob. Stone Soup would be pretty, but it's a subtle pattern. So personally, as much as I love Stone Soup, I would probably go for something else, probably one of the DKs. It would be gorgeous in the yard for this week, the confection DK. It would be
Oh, is
stunning.
that what that is? Yeah, that would be
And
nice.
nice and warm too. I have a confection sweater that I wore it to my first Rhinebeck, and I remember it was rainy and very windy and very cold, and it was like my jacket. It was fantastic. I did a Thea Coleman sweater in it, and it's amazing. And also, it hasn't pilled. I did it years ago. Hasn't pilled like a single pill. It's just such a good performance yarn. So like if you have a guy who likes to go outside and chop firewood for 6 hours, it's the perfect yarn for him. Or if you live somewhere cold, it's excellent, like Colorado or Maine or Canada. It's really warm and lovely. It would make a really great jacket too. I know Anne's got that new worsted pattern she's going to release hopefully for the Rhinebeck sweater knit along. And it would be amazing for that too, the worsted confection.
I think it would make a beautiful fisherman's sweater. With the
Oh,
fringe.
totally. It's perfect
thinking,
for that.
This is so fisherman's sweater kind of
Mhm.
yarn.
It shows off cables and stuff really well. I can get it if you guys want to see it.
Which yarn?
The confection, I used confection worsted, and the yarn this week, I understand, I wasn't here on Wednesday, is the same sheep. I think it's spun to a different weight than she has in the shop, but it's fantastic. The Corriedale yarn.
Are we
I think
talking
she was
about,
showing us the confection, and I think it's 2-ply, if I remember correctly, and this is 3-ply.
Yeah, and this is a DK, and she doesn't sell, and you might be talking about the sport, Debbie, and I did a sweater in the worsted.
Okay.
She
Um,
also said this particular Corriedale was combed,
Right.
not just carded.
Mm.
And that makes
It
it
feels very smooth.
Makes
rounder and smoother. Yeah.
smoother. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's a joy to knit with because it has really nice bounce. So if you have arthritis or something, it just feels really good and velvety in the hands. It's a really nice yarn and excellent for like mitts and cowls too, because it is so warm. Hats, it's very insulating.
are we talking about number 2?
Yeah.
Yes, the Corriedale fiber. I'm just saying her confection yarn is made with it's Corriedale. And I knit a Thea Coleman sweater many years ago with it. But back to herring weave, Melissa, if you have any questions about the herring weave, I'm happy to answer them.
I ordered the Fin Dandy 3-ply and I was winding it, and it was very much like the Corriedale. I was really surprised, and it was a little bit whiter than when I put it next to it. So I'm going to try to knit a men's sweater in it.
Nice. I've knit 2 of my sweaters in Fin Dandy, and I love them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Me
I
too.
just finished doing Robin's Nest with the Fin Dandy and I love it. And I think probably the biggest difference, I'm sure they're probably similar, Karen, because they're both worsted spun and combed, I think. But the Corriedale's a warmer yarn, just period. The fiber is warmer, and I'm sure Anne will get to that when she has a chance to explain it to us.
I'm knitting with the Fin Dandy for the first time. I'm new to all of this with you all. I'm making the interlocking.
Oh.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Yeah, I'm working on the sleeves right now. What does the Fin Dandy do once it's washed? How does it feel? Does it soften up a little bit more?
It feels like a giant hug. I love it.
does it
Oh
really?
my God, it is wonderful. It's
It's
soft.
really nice.
It is. Oh my God, it's wonderful.
Oh, I better hurry up then. Get this. Yeah.
Is it the 2 or the 3-ply?
This is Fin Dandy 3-ply sport in lynx.
Oh, it's
It's very nice stuff.
Yeah, I'm
The
excited.
2-ply is a little bit softer than the 3-ply. The 3-ply is a little bit more firm. It's not like it's hard or anything, but it's just got sort of more oomph.
It's rounder, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And the
probably-
2-ply is much more sort of fluffy, but they both are really nice.
Well, with, I think probably why Ann suggested this, because I bought it at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I live like 10 minutes from the fairgrounds. And it really shows the definition of the pattern.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's.
I think
it's
she
a
designed
much-
it for that yarn, actually.
Yeah,
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 the more plies in the yarn tend to do that, give you a crisper definition. And the 2-ply is going to give you that little bit more of a subtle in
yes.
the Fin Dandy. But you're gonna
Yes.
love it because it's when she came out with the yarn last year, she was telling us it's a very close cousin to Shetland. I think of it as super soft Shetland. So you're gonna love how it holds up. I mean, it's amazing.
Here is
And
the
um,
interlock
last-
with 2-ply, the interlock and 2-ply. I just.
Oh, wow. Let
So
me
this-
pin, hang on. Don't take it down.
Okay, so there it is. And this is done with the 2-ply.
Okay, yeah, it
Yeah.
does have a softer look to it. Yes.
It has a
Yeah.
softer look, but it's still very nice. But I love the 3-ply. Oh my God, I love the 3-ply.
Yeah, you can see the
That's
difference.
Yeah,
I think the 2-ply is my absolutely all-time favorite yarn,
Yeah.
and that includes Stone Soup, which I'm completely addicted to. So,
yep.
yeah.
well, Anne was explaining on Wednesday that a 2-ply twist, actually, when the 2 strands twist around each other, it's different than a 3-ply because the 2 plies actually go around each other, think double helix, whereas the 3-ply is curling all together aligned. So essentially you have 1 ply that's always in the middle and 1 ply that's always on the outside.
Mhm.
So that feature of how the twist of the yarn is created creates the difference that everybody's talking about in all those good words.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting because the architecture of your fiber and how the yarn is put together really changes how it performs in the garment. And
Absolutely.
that's what's so interesting about this exercise.
And she was explaining that a 3-ply yarn has sort of a central column that's air. So they tend to have, I think she said, more warmth. Anyone who was
Yeah.
there might remember.
It's
more than I
insulation.
remember.
So like alpaca naturally has an empty core, the actual hair itself. And that's why alpaca is so warm. And then the 3-ply is basically creating with the machinery, something like that.
Okay,
So more
you got it.
warmth without the weight, more warmth without the weight because of
Well,
that.
it's a little heavier because it's a 3-ply.
Yeah, but not like,
Not like
Wow.
a worsted. Not like a
yes.
worsted or an Aran.
The other thing she said, I can remember things. It doesn't mean I know things. But what she said is that the plies are thinner. They're not as the same size as a 2-ply yarn. To make it 3-ply, you get a thinner ply for each of the plies. So it isn't that extra heavy weight that you might get if it were thicker. It might feel more like a worsted.
This is the sort of thing that I think is so interesting about working with her.
Well, and
learning
that's
all that stuff.
also
glad you're
how you
here.
go down the rabbit hole because you want to try and experience the different breeds and how they perform. And it's so fascinating in the group setting because then you get to see, you know, you'll have one sweater and you'll have 10 people choose a different yarn. And it's amazing to see how they come out.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm working on my barn box project with the goat. And I'm making the Capricorn triangle shawl.
Oh,
And
nice.
I am loving this lace weight yarn. with
Oh, it's
the,
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Now you know why I love my artist show so much, Audrey.
yes. I wanted something that would be a slightly warmer shawl without quite so many holes, and all of this garter stitch is going to do it.
Mhm.
And that, when you get to the end and do the border, it's really fun.
Yeah, I think I'm about halfway.
What's the name of, Audrey, of the lace yarn you're using?
It's called GOAT, GOAT, and they're all initials for something. I don't know.
Greatest of all time.
Say that one more time.
GOAT.
Of all time.
Greatest.
So all the
Greatest-
different shades are named after the greatest athletes of all time. So there's a Serena Williams, there's a Michael Jordan, there's a Wayne Gretzky. Doesn't have their
I
last
didn't
name.
know that. Okay. I just knew it had goat in it.
The things you learn while
That's
knitting.
wonderful. I didn't know the naming was that way either. That's really funny.
Yeah.
I think the other one is Simone Biles, maybe.
Yeah,
It is.
it is Scout's mom, yeah.
That makes sense.
I'm using Michael. That's okay. There you go.
Michael Jordan was just here. He's from where I live, Wilmington, North Carolina, and he was just here last week on a fishing trip in a fishing tournament. And for a little while, he was in first place. And it was a mahi, an Atlantic dolphin fishing tournament, and not dolphin porpoise, dolphin fish. And he was in first place for a while. And then somebody came in with a much bigger one. It was kind of cool. It was a teenager. So
Nice.
very gracious. Yeah.
Now, I thought you meant Michael Phelps. So
No, he's from Baltimore.
there's more than one Michael that could be a goat.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't have the last name on it, so you can make it
You
whoever.
can,
you
yeah, pick your own goat.
I don't know. Michael Phelps didn't play two sports and do well in them.
That's
I was
true.
fascinated that there's another Ann Hansen that's a designer, but
Yeah,
has two N's in her last name.
yes. I found that out too.
Has
Try to
everyone
explain it.
here participated already? In a mystery knit along with Anne? I seem like I'm the only one that kind of doesn't know a lot of this stuff.
Oh, there are lots of people.
I'm
They're not always on Zoom.
I'm new.
Raise your hand if you're new. Who's new? Oh, whoops.
Hang on here, Deja vu. How
This
many
is my
mysteries-
first mystery one, but I've done some of her other
Uh-huh.
knit-alongs.
Okay.
But this is my first mystery one.
Okay,
This is my first mystery and first sweater pattern.
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
You'll
I
get that.
started the barn box in January, so I did the self-care sweater in January and then the lace along in whatever, we just finished that. So,
Uh-oh, now you're hooked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
once
oh,
you
yeah.
start, you just can't go.
I think you and I joined at the same time,
yeah.
Julie, because
Yeah.
that's about my story too.
Did our New Jersey Julie, has she had her shoulder surgery yet, or is it next week? Do we know?
Don't know.
She said it was on Wednesday. She said it was less than, I think she said 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away, I
Okay,
thought. So I think it's next week.
thanks, Debbie.
I've been known to be wrong though, so don't quote me.
Well, we all know I'm wrong all the time.
Okay, so I'm about to start 3. It is very different feeling from the Cormo, isn't it?
Yeah. They're a nice contrast. It's funny because the white is so puffy and it really grabs the needle and like it's sort of like a marshmallow. And then the next one is sort of slippery and you're like, oh, my tension must be really off, but no, it's not. It's just
Just a
really
different
different
feel. I think
feel.
I've decided I want to make another Carlsbad cowl and the mitts to go with it out of this Cormo.
Oh, nice. So
think
I have a
Yes,
question.
luscious.
Did anybody order any of this new yarn number 2? Any extras? And what are they gonna do with it? I'm just curious.
That's what I'm gonna do. I haven't ordered it yet, but that's what
You're
I'm
gonna do the Carlsbad?
the Carlsbad cowl and mitts.
I think that'll be beautiful.
I think a lot of you guys ordered, or quite a few people ordered the first one.
The Folkstone.
Yeah. I have hurt my hand, my wrist and my thumb. And I went in and the doctor x-rayed it and she said, no, you've just strained it really badly. My daughter said, well, what do you expect? You won't stop knitting. And my doctor said, you don't have to stop knitting, just ice it when you're not knitting.
Oh, man. I feel for you. I have tennis elbow right now from gardening and knitting. And am I putting my knitting down? No.
You know, I have a little clamp that you can buy online. It's like a little Velcro strip that you put around and it helps immensely. I used to get that when I first started CrossFit.
I've
And
got one
it
of those.
helped. But this one, they had me in a brace, but you can't knit in a brace.
Yeah.
You can't.
Yeah, and if there's Velcro on it, your yarn would just get shredded on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I have my priorities.
Good girl.
I went to
I-
PT for my thumb because this part right here kills me all the time.
Why don't you
And
guys go get massage?
oh, massage helps a lot, but you can't
Yeah.
be massaged all the time. So I went to PT thinking that they would have some suggestions, and they were totally insane because they said, well, knitting isn't helping, so stop knitting. And I was like, are you on drugs? Like,
Like,
that is
oh,
not
yeah,
a thing.
sorry.
I'm sorry, I can't do that.
That
I
would
just
be like
completely
telling
was
me to stop
outraged.
breathing.
Yeah, I was like, I'm
Stop
sorry, no, do
breathing.
you want to just stop eating, like, or breathing, or like, no, that is not a thing. And she looked at me like I was totally insane. And she said, but it hurts when you do it. And I'm like, I know, that's why I'm here. And she's like,
Why are you doing it? She's thinking.
I
Yeah,
said, all right, well,
I had
clearly
that-
you're not a crafter, so
Yeah.
I need to find somebody else because you're
I
insane.
had that joint reconstructed last year.
Oh,
They
wow.
took out a bone. It's the CMC
Wow.
joint because I have really severe arthritis and they take a tendon out of your arm and they make a new cartilage and they
Oh my.
So I had to keep my arm suspended for a week from an IV pole. And then I was in a hard plastic splint for 6 weeks and I was still knitting. I put a sock or just a mitt over my Velcro so I wouldn't get stuff caught
Oh,
in.
good idea.
And I knit Continental instead of my throwing. I picked and I did it. I wasn't going to stop.
Yeah.
Try that, psych.
She was like, you need to wear this brace that like completely immobilizes you in every possible way that would be of any use. And I was like, yeah, no.
I did that. And I still wear a brace on my left one because I need to have my left one done. And I wear a brace and I just put a mitt, like a gauntlet over it and go for it.
I put my TENS machine on it.
I used the
before I
TENS,
went to my,
yeah.
my conference and it seemed to help. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, the TENS is very nice. It works really well if you remember to use it. When you start getting really uncomfortable, then you're like, oh, right, I need to use that thing, and
Right.
solves the problem. And like, yeah, because not knitting, like, no. And I even escalated it with the place and said, isn't there anybody that does hands that doesn't say, just don't do that? Because that's not really, do you have like an art therapy kind of group
Yeah,
or
that's
something?
not realistic
That,
to tell
like,
people
that is so
not to
not
do stuff.
realistic. And they were like, yeah, no, she's the expert. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
The hand therapist never told me to stop knitting. She said, wear your brace all the time except for the things that you really, really want to do. So I would wear it like, 16 hours a day. And then I would sit, and she also said, take frequent breaks and massage your hand and, put ice on it. But I never stopped, and she never asked me to stop. I mean, it's a hand therapy place. And they just said, you got to pick your priorities. So
My father's a painter, and like you do, he fell off the 3rd-story roof, hands first, smashed the heck out of both wrists, was in that porcupine thing that they stick metal bits out of. And they asked him, what is the most important thing to you when they were doing the physical therapy? And he was like, I need to be able to paint again. I painted for, 70 years, and that's not going to stop because of this. And they were like, okay. And so they worked with him until he now paints again. And so I know it's a thing. I think I just lucked out and got the one place that was like, if your hand offends you, just don't use it. And it was like, no, that is not a thing. Yeah, I was just lucky. Right. And left something in the other room.
I'm worried about Anne. She had planned on me.
Maybe she did get stuck at the store. That seems very plausible.
Can someone text her and ask and just help her?
Already have.
Yeah, we've already done that. Something must be going on, so.
That's what I figured.
Okay,
I know that her husband's mother lives with her, and that's always my first thought, because she.
Yeah, it has to be something big for Anne not to be here, so.
Yeah, this would not be normal.
Yeah. We can play nice in her absence and
You know what we could do?
wait for the fog next time.
We also heard from the people who were attending and paying attention. So, stand
Yeah.
Well,
Yes,
you guys all
I'm
got your
impressed.
recording, right?
There
Yeah.
is that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, this is my 4th of her recordings in 2 days because I had to catch up. So
Right.
I've seen you all recently.
I think I'm gonna go ahead and log out now and go back and listen to Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll finish watching it.
She did a little bit of talk, but she had every intentions of doing a big talk about the yarn today. So
Right.
that's why I said, I know this isn't what she intended.
yeah,
It's just more mystery, just more mystery.
That's right. The suspense.
well, I hope all is well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll see you all next week.
Okay.
Oh, here
Bye.
Here
she comes.
Here's
Oh,
the
here she
logo.
comes. Yes.
She
I am-
comes.
I am so sorry.
She's here. She's here.
I
She's
had
okay.
to. I'm working in the shop today, and right at like 12:15, a couple people came in who travel from Massachusetts. So of course, they wanted to chit
Oh.
chat for quite a while, and then, or I'm sorry, one was from Florida, one was from Massachusetts, and then right behind them came another couple people. And when people come to the shop, they want to like visit. So it's not like in and out kind of thing. But
Well,
anyway,
good to see
We're
you
glad
well.
that's all it was.
I'm sorry.
We
I know
won't worry
the
about
whole
that.
time I'm thinking, oh, I might have to have the dogs sign in.
That's a talented dog, Anne.
Yeah, I didn't even have my phone on in my pocket or anything to text anybody. So anyway, hi everybody.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
Jose's on her porch, which I'm really
Yeah.
happy about.
Yeah.
I'm jealous.
29 degrees, which is 90.
Wow.
It's 90.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really hot here later. Which it was really nice and cool this morning, but and I'm in air conditioning now, so I'm in like, fake weather right now. So does anybody have any questions or anything? Anything I can help anybody with?
There's been some good information traded back and forth. I'm impressed at how much Audrey remembered about the qualities or the characteristics of the yarn you discussed last time. So
Yeah, we might have to hire her, huh?
yeah, I think you might need her on your team.
A nice acolyte there. Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far.
I mean, I was really pleased about the discussion we had the other night, that everyone really seemed to tune in to like the differences between the first two yarns and what they everyone's observations about the yarns was really interesting to me, and your interest in why they might, why the differences, why it feels so different was also heartening for me, I guess. Always makes me glad that I do this when we have these like really energetic discussions about, even if it's disagreement, it's energetic, I'm glad to see Melissa because we missed her last week. You weren't here last week, right?
Yeah, my parents came to Baltimore, and so it was kind of a surprise. So I had to go because it's never going to happen again that I can drive 2 hours to see them instead of 8. And so, yeah, I did that instead. And then I actually went twice in the same weekend, once to Baltimore and once to Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. So
wow,
lots of holiday traffic. But yeah, so I'm sorry I missed.
Well, we're always happy to have you here.
It was very nice to see my parents, and I gave my mother that ridiculously long shawl, and she put it on, and it fit perfectly. So
that's good.
It was not ridiculously long for her whatsoever. And my father was like, "Oh, this works very well for a lap blanket," and he took it. So we'll see.
He's happy to. They'll be fighting over it. You'll have to make him.
Yeah, I might have to make him something.
Just make him that, only in a different, like a woolly yarn or something.
That's true. I could make him one.
You could make him the square one. Mm-hmm. Or he could have your mystery wool along lap blanket or something.
The cowl that never ended. Yeah.
Yeah. He'll know what to do with it, apparently.
Yeah, he was all over it. He was like, "Well, it's a little narrow, but it covers my whole length." And I was like, "Okay." He was excited.
Well, so I promised today that I would talk about the sheep that we're knitting with this week, which, if for anybody who didn't get the memo, it's Corriedale, and for anyone who has knit with our older line of Corriedale yarn, the confection, will have noticed that this one feels different, and I think so anyway. I'm curious to hear what Catherine thinks, although she's not knitting with it, I don't think. But Catherine, did you get Corriedale? You got the packet, right? She's here, right?
She's walking back. She said just a minute.
Oh, okay. Just because I know she's a real fan of the confection yarn. And
I'm here. I loved it. Because I love how round it is. And I love that it's a lighter weight than the worsted that I knit with. And I think the color is gorgeous. And I haven't knit with it because I'm doing my cowl in just the Kent, but I'm going to. So
doesn't it feel softer to you? Or
totally. It totally does. It totally does. And it looks like it's going to have better stitch definition. But I really like the DK weight of it. I think that is the most intriguing thing, because that just suits my sensibilities, I think, a little bit better than the worsted. But I love the confection, the original one, and wish sometimes I lived in a colder place so I could knit with it more. So if this is I think it would be really fun to knit with, because it looks like it's going to have beautiful stitch definition like the Fin Dandy 3-ply.
Yeah, so it does. I mean, anyone who's gotten even partway into this week's stitch pattern should be pretty impressed with the stitch definition that they're getting with the number 2 yarn. And that's why I picked that stitch pattern, because it's almost stockinette. It's stockinette with little purl ridges in it, and it would be difficult to get good stitch definition with some other yarns. Like this is a great yarn to get that pattern popping. That said, one of the cool things about this project, if you're making one of the wider pieces and you have a chance to use your colors, mix and match your colors and patterns a little bit, I encourage you to try the different stitch patterns with different yarns as you go, so that you can really compare the qualities of the stitch definition between like a 2-ply yarn and a 3-ply yarn, or between one of the fuzzier yarns and one of the smoother yarns, just so that you have that information for when you go shopping for yarn for maybe another project. So if you're shopping for yarn for a knit pearl texture, you have this experience of which yarn you prefer to knit that texture with. This wool along experience is exposing you to different fiber types, different yarn constructions, and that's gonna, and hopefully that will be knowledge that you can bank for the future for picking out yarns for other kinds of projects. All right, anybody else want to say anything or contribute anything that that they think is important?
I was saying I love this yarn because I think it would be pretty in like a fisherman's knit or something like that. It's just so plump and pretty. But I think I'm going to make the Carlsbad cowl and the mitts out of it. Would that work? I think it would be beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That cable would really pop in this yarn. Yeah. And still feeds into your you know, that is a cable pattern with it's a textured cable. So you know, it's kind of fisherman like.
Right.
Or it has notes of fisherman knit in it.
The cable kind of lends itself to that, and that's one of my favorite cowls of yours.
Yeah,
that
I just love that cable. I love knitting it. You do have to pay attention because it changes all the time, but it's a lot of fun to knit. And for anyone who isn't familiar, it's a cable that swings back and forth. So it's a cable that balloons outward and inward, but at the same time, it also swings back and forth so that's asymmetrical. And the filling in between the ballooning parts is sometimes it's seed stitch and sometimes it's ribbing. So it's got a lot of different stuff going on, and it's really fun to knit. It really keeps your project moving.
And which pattern was that you mentioned?
It's called the Carlsbad cowl.
Carlsbad. Okay.
It's got a matching hat called Torrey Pines, and the mittens are Torrey Pines, and the hat is Hills and Hamul. It's all like towns in Southern California that I was visiting when I designed it. So when Kim used to live there.
Oh, okay.
We used to go to that Torrey Pines State Park all the time to go hiking. All right, so Corriedale sheep. Corriedale is one of the early modern breeds of sheep. It's an inbred half breed with merino and on the female side and Lincoln long wool on the sire side. And it was developed as one of the early dual purpose sheep to combine the best traits of both wool breeds and meat breeds. It was originated in New Zealand, early in New Zealand's history. So New Zealand is made up of two big islands, the South Island and the main island. And early in New Zealand's history, income from sheep primarily derived from the sale of wool. The wool industry was booming during the days when the rural areas of Australia and New Zealand were settled, and the world just couldn't get enough wool during the early industrial age period. And so and wool couldn't be produced in great quantity in places like England as much as they needed, because England was, you know, fairly quickly becoming a country full of cities. So the industrial end of the textile industry was based in the city, in the urban areas, and near ports. And so it became really, I guess, economical to work with wool people or wool sources in even pretty far away places, with ships going back and forth between Australia, New Zealand, and England and Europe. It was fairly easy to have a constant supply of wool from these kind of colonies, these places that were further away. So the thing about the wool industry is that there was this huge boom in the textile industry in the late 1800s with industrialization and the development of mechanical spinners and weavers, and people moving to urban areas to work in industry. There was a really big change in the way that textiles were consumed around the world. And for a period of about 40 years, the world consumption of wool just grew and grew and grew and grew. And as anyone who knows, who has lived through modern times knows, when something grows really fast like that and consumption just seems to run away with itself, there's bound to be a correction or even a crash in an industry at some point. And people who kind of predicted that began to think about our wool producing animals, sheep, in ways that they began to think about raising sheep in ways that could be more multi-purpose, so that they could weather the ups and downs of their markets more readily. And not just their markets, but things like weather and drought. You know, Australia and New Zealand are in areas that can be, that did suffer a great drought in the, I think it was in the 1890s, if I'm not mistaken. And things like that happen mean that you have to get the most out of whatever little you can raise. So anyway, the result of that need to diversify the products that could be had from a single flock led to husbandry and genetics and breeding programs that took advantage of the genetics in different type of sheep to breed new breeds that could serve multiple purposes for the grower or the producer. And because in New Zealand, so one of the inventions of the industrial period that led to these programs is the development of refrigerated transportation in ships. So being able to refrigerate meat that was raised in Australia so that it could be transported to England or America or Europe or anywhere, meant that that producing sheep that had a good, healthy volume of fleece, as well as a larger carcass and more meat, that began to make more sense. So the Corriedale is one of the early modern, what we call a modern breed, that was bred specifically to serve a purpose, a dual purpose that would be more marketable and more equitable for the producer. So enter James Little, who came to New Zealand in the 1860s from Scotland. And he is the person who established the Corriedale breed. He was already experienced as a sheepman in England, but mostly with British breeds. So he brought some Romney sheep with him in the 1860s. He was hired to manage 2 large ranches in New Zealand, and one of them being the Corriedale estate at Otago on the South Island of New Zealand. So he started working on crosses that would fill this need to diversify the products that could be had from sheep. So he worked on Merino cross for quite a while, and the main stock of sheep in Australia at that time was Merino. So that's what Australia is famous for. That was the sheep of choice across the island. And whatever is happening in Australia often migrates over to New Zealand because they're so close. And they work together in terms of different aspects of processing wool and sharing stock and moving stock around during bad weather periods. Anyway, so he was crossing Romneys on Merinos, and but he was having difficulty with getting consistent results. The genetics of Romneys, whatever is going on there, just wasn't producing like the same results over and over enough. And so next he tried Lincoln Merino crosses, and that kind of did the trick. As we talked about before, when we had a discussion about the Polworth yarn, Lincoln sheep have really strong, assertive genetics. So when you cross Lincolns with other sheep, you're going to get like the best traits of the Lincoln to come through. The Lincoln is a big rectangular sheep. They're very large, and their bodies just look very blocky. They're deep and long, and they have especially long hindquarters, so they're very good meat producers. Their fleeces it's a long wool, and it's a luster wool, and it's very strong. It tends to be a little bit coarse. They produce wool of all different shades, but especially rich and very dark brown, black colors. So, so there's a lot of that heritage color in the Lincoln breed, and crossed with Merino, which is a soft, fine, very fluffy, full volumed fleece that even in the 1800s was, most producers were aiming for producing mostly white wool and not a lot of colored merino, although it existed. That the aim of most large scale producers was to get to be breeding sheep with white wool. So in crossing the Lincoln with the merino, however, the product was a sheep that could produce a wide range of fleece shades. everything from white to kind of a fawn color, and chocolate browns and rich rusty brown. You can get a really nice range of rich color browns with Corriedale sheep. Not as much of a blue gray or a silver. There's a little bit of that, but it's usually mixed in with the brown fleece. So you might get like a sheep with a dark brown back and some reddish brown around the edges, or some silver gray mixed in. Older sheep sometimes produce a little more silver gray. So so people who produce Corriedales are generally producing a fairly wide range of colors, especially now, and especially in the USA, because colored fleece here is more desirable and more useful in the craft industry. The smaller breeders that we usually deal with are, a lot of them are actually breeding for color as well. So you might, when you visit their farms, see very few white sheep and almost all colored ones. When we did our confection yarns, and that was about almost 10 years ago now that we produced those, we had a really great visit with our producer at the time, in upstate New York, a family farm that runs approximately 325, a flock size of 325 in the warm seasonable months, and pared down to probably half that in the winter months. So we have some video up on our YouTube channel, talking to the farmer, and kind of just, it's older video, so it's not like super clear or overly produced. It's literally from my own camera, my own handheld video, but meeting some of the lambs and the sheep in the field, and looking at all of their different color fleeces is kind of fun. So it's just a short piece of video, but it's kind of interesting. And that's on the Knit Spot YouTube channel, just so you can see that variety. Let's see. So once we get the genetics stabilized, oh, sorry.
Can I ask you a quick question about the farmer?
Yeah.
Is he at Rhinebeck by any chance? Can we go by with our garments and be like, look, I am wearing your yarn, you know?
I don't know if they show, it's Bear Farm. So that producer is Bear Farm. I don't know if they come to Rhinebeck or not.
Well, that'll be fun to look for then. Thanks.
Right. And I don't know, we've got some questions into the mill. We're not sure. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this is not the same producer that produced this Corriedale.
Because it's different.
I just feel like it's so different. It doesn't feel like the same fiber, but that doesn't mean it's not.
It doesn't it doesn't have the linking qualities as much, just listening to you talk about it, I think.
But that could be for a variety of reasons. I mean, it could be just a completely different quality or grade of fleece. It could be, I was saying the other night, one of the things that it could be is that the mill this year got a wool comb, and it could be that this fiber has been combed as opposed to the fiber in the confection yarn, which is semi-worsted, which is just, it's not combed, it's drafted more so that it approximates a combed fiber. So I'm not really sure. And we've asked a couple times, so we're just waiting for answers on those things. I do know that it's from the New England area. I just don't know exactly where yet. We'll get to the bottom of that. Anyway, the resulting sheep, the resulting cross, is a sheep that produces a heavy, voluminous fleece, as the average being about 7 kilograms, which is almost 16 pounds, I think. So yeah, that's a pretty big fleece. And the animals are pretty good size. I would say that the Corriedale it's not as big as a Lincoln sheep. It doesn't have that real blocky body shape, but they're a good sized sheep. They're kind of shaped more like a Romney, you know, kind of rounder and softer looking than the Lincolns are. One of the, you know, some of the other things that producers look at when they're discussing the success of a cross is what the fertility rate is, and which is at least 100% with the Corriedales, and also how many multiples the breed produces. So for instance, Finn sheep are known for producing multiple lambs, as many even as like 6 in a litter at that point, which is very unusual among sheep, but it's been seen. Jacob also produces, you know, a healthy number of multiples. You know, most farmers are happy with a flock that produces a lot of twins, but with Finn sheep, you can really expect to have I don't know, a progeneration rate of even like 1.4, like 140% is not, you know, out of this world to expect. With Jacobs, you're kind of looking at 120%. And with Corriedales, it's over 100%, which is always good. In other words, they produce lambs that are healthy and live, and often in multiples. Their wool is bright and dense and soft. It's considered a medium grade fiber, meaning that the micron diameter is between 25 and 32, a little outside the merino range, which tops off at 24 microns, but certainly within the range of a nice handling soft wool for hand knitting. Let's see. Getting back to the microns, that is for adult sheep. With lambs, you can always expect a finer fiber, but of course, that's only for as long as they're a lamb. And once they get older, the fleece will toughen a little bit and become a little more, a little thicker hair shaft. In terms of the meat carcass, Corriedales are a nice lean lamb because so much of their energy is spent on producing wool. So that's kind of an interesting thing to know about dual and multi-purpose animals, is that when you're breeding for wool and you're really working on genetics that get the most out of the wool coat, you're going to end up with leaner bodied sheep, which may not produce the most tender meat. So it might be good meat, healthy meat, but not necessarily the most tender. And those are all things that producers need to balance when they're diversifying the product that they're growing. So so you won't see too many overweight Corriedale sheep. The Corriedale name was chosen, you know, that's the homestead where the breed was developed, and it was chosen to be the official breed name in 1902. So usually it takes at least 25 years it only takes a few generations of sheep breeding to produce a new cross or a new breed. but it usually takes about 25 years for a breed to establish itself in terms of there being enough of that sheep with consistent results that you can actually create a list of conformity traits that conform from one generation to the next. And so that usually takes at least 25 years. In the case of, for instance, the Polworth, that was a very quick developing sheep with good, strong genetics. And within 25 years of the first generation of Polworths, there was an association and a flock book already. And, you know, that was a very quick developing sheep. The Corriedale's more, a little slower than that, but kind of in the middle. The New Zealand Sheep Breeders Association began publishing pedigrees for sheep in 1911. And then the first flock book was published in 1924. Let's see. That's kind of everything I have about the little history of the Corriedale. It is a very popular fiber for hand spinning. If I know from myself, there are lots of small Corriedale farms scattered throughout New England and Midwest where that you can see at shows and fairs where you might want to buy fleece for hand spinning. And the fact that they produce in a wide range of colors makes it a nice, you know, product to spin with. It's I always really liked spinning it. One of my very favorite batches of fiber that I've had is a Corriedale, a Corriedale crossback on Lincoln. So it's like a longer staple, very, very, very dark brown Corriedale. I spun a whole bunch of it to knit David a sweater with. So he's the lucky ducky that gets all the all the fun stuff. But it's a nice springy fiber. It has a lot of that merino bouncy squishiness. And what it gets from the Lincoln, in my opinion, is the really, really rich brown colors and a little bit of that shine that comes through, like just enough to highlight your stitch work and make it reflect a little bit of light. But it's a nice smooth yarn to knit with. Lots of Corriedale that's produced goes into those generic wool blends that are used throughout the knitting yarn industry. When you buy something that's 100% wool, Corriedale is going to be a big contribution of that. You can run Corriedales in large flocks on big ranches. They're easy to care for. They mother easily out on the range, and they're, you know, the wool is, in that case, is maybe not going to be as pampered as some of the wools that you get from a smaller farm, but it's a very reliable product that can go into these wool pools or wool co-ops where a large amount of fiber can be funneled into the textile industry, whether into yarn for weaving or yarn for machine knits or to make, you know, hand knitting yarns. This is the kind of wool that is going to be a big staple for that market. Any questions?
I have a quick one when you're talking about the colors of the brown, because I agree. I don't know what it is about those your confection browns. I love them so much personally over some of the other breeds.
Uh-huh.
How would you compare them, I guess?
With
Like
what?
Well, like with the Kent Browns or the breakfast blend browns, the richness. I feel like, I don't know, are the Corriedales not as red? What is about the browns?
I think they're more red. So
Oh,
I
they're
think
more red. Okay.
yeah. So the Romney sheep, well, the Romney has a range. Don't forget, they are able to produce everything from silver gray to really dark chocolate brown. So you will get that same really dark brown as the Lincolns, but maybe not that black brown. So there's that just really rich black brown that the Lincoln produces that. And
yeah, it's super espresso-y, like when you did the lace for the club.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That was like a black brown.
Yeah.
But it does have I guess with the Corriedale, I would say, if anything, the undertone is more red. And with the Romney, it's more blue, maybe. You get, with the Romney, even with the dark fleece, you'll get some gray in there often. So
that's good to know. That helps. Because it's hard to see sometimes, you know, at a show with the lighting or on the website, which if I'm looking for a brown. So that's really helpful. Thanks.
I think one of the places that you see the Lincoln even more is in the stone soup. Between the dark merino that's in there and the dark Lincoln, you get that really dark river rock color. It's very deep. And I think you know, with Corriedale, you see some of those same tones. But honestly, like, I'm not a scientist. I don't know. I can't tell you specific, like, you know, gene alleles or anything.
You're an artist. You can see the subtle differences in the color and the tones.
From an artistic standpoint, yes, I can tell you that. But I don't really have I don't know the reasons why it's that way.
Oh, no, I wasn't looking for the reasons. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I struggle with choosing browns, so that helps me.
Yeah, I mean, browns are really different. And many of when we talk about sheep wool and we say gray, what that really means is anything that's not white. So it's, so for some sheep, their gray is really brown. It's not, you know, we're not talking steel gray or blue gray. And the true browns are really, you know, more it is like the reddish brown, and I don't know what they call the dark brown. I call it chocolate, but that's not industry standard, you know.
So I guess my next question would be, what would be your favorite things or like best suggestions to knit with the yarn that came in the kit? This DK white, like, if
we did
I wasn't here Wednesday, so
no, I know, and I don't mind talking about it again, but it is a nice round squishy springy yarn, and you know, knit pearl combinations will pop in a yarn like this. Cables, you know, and of course anything that that knit pearl can do, or that can do justice for knit pearls, will probably do really nicely in cables as well. You'll get really nice big round cables with this yarn. Now this is a funny thing, but personally I like really soft yarn for cables because I don't like cabled fabrics to feel like they're choking me, but and I'm really sensitive to that. So some people really like that feeling of a very firm fabric. This would be a little too much in cabled fabric for me, but this might be just what someone else wants in a cabled fabric. So I know, for instance, Thea Coleman, she really likes her cabled fabrics to feel stiff, you know, to feel firm. I'm the complete opposite. I love cabled fabrics, but I don't want them to feel any more stiff or constricting than any other fabrics. So I want them to still be stretchy, and then that can be a bit more challenging in terms of finding a yarn that will pop, you know. This might, so this will look really good in cables, but depending on what your expectation is of that overall fabric, this will also have quite a bit of structure and less kind of flexibility. Oh, hang on a second. Erin, come here. Speaking of cables, Erin, come here. I just had to make sure that a customer wasn't coming in and letting the dogs out at the same time. Hi, girls. Here. Hi. Now they think it's time for a treat. Now with an open work fabric, this yarn is gonna want to close up the holes quite, you know, it's gonna want to always, because it's so springy, it's always going to want to retract. It might not hold its blocked shape as well with an open work fabric. So that's something to consider. And it might be, I mean, this is a pretty big round DK. So personally, it would be a little heavy for color work, in my opinion. But again, that's, I guess, you know, if you swatch it and like it, then it would be fine. Anybody else have a question? Debbie, are you talking to us or somebody else? She might be talking to somebody else. Okay. Anybody else have a question or want to say anything?
I have a question.
Okay.
It's about Romney.
Uh-huh.
And I was fortunate to get a Canadian, not superwashed, two-ply Romney. And
where's it from? Karen, where's it from? Because I found some up at a show up there that I loved, and
the shop that puts their label on it is Pure Liane, Laine, and the make that they name on it is Carpe Diem.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's yeah, that's not the one I was.
No, my big question is, why am I getting so much fluff on my clothes when I was knitting a gauge patch?
What? Probably. I don't know the answer to that exactly. That kind of shedding we don't find that that's a big problem with our yarn. And I'm not sure why that happens. If it's because, well, first of all, is it dyed? Like, has it been processed? It is. It's possible that the dyeing damaged it so that it's breaking a little bit. One thing I've noticed in the past with spinning Romney is that when the Romney is dyed, it gets a little more brittle, and spinning it, it becomes much more difficult to hand spin after it's been dyed. And it's like the fiber blooms, and the little scales become like hooks that drag on it constantly.
Yeah.
So it's possible that the fiber is slightly damaged from the processing that it's been through.
I haven't asked them yet because I've only dealt with them a couple times. What about merino? If it was 100% merino, would it shed?
Usually merino isn't a shedder. Don't forget that the Romney also might be a fiber that has some little bit of hemp in its fleece, but I can't remember offhand if that's true. I would think that what you're seeing is more due to damage, that the fiber is actually breaking, or being a long wool, that when the sheep were sheared, that a certain amount of shortcuts ended up in the fiber, which is where the shearer goes back over an area and there's like a short cut. So there's a whole bunch of these shorter fibers that get mixed in with the fleeces. And you know, it's usually a badge of honor not to have that in your fleeces if you're shearing, but it happens, you know, every once in a while there's some that gets in there, especially if it's from a wool pool.
I have to ask them what kind of dye is used by the people they're working with. I haven't done that yet. So if it's supernatural, I'll let you know.
It might just be that in the course of dyeing it, that it just got overheated and that damaged the fiber. Some of those wools take a long time to suck up dye, or you know, they might be kind of resistant to it. So different types of wool take dye differently, take different lengths of time to accept dye and to be saturated. So it's really easy with non-superwash wool to cook the wool for too long. And that's why so many dyers don't use it, don't like untreated wool, because it's more delicate and harder to deal with. And then of course, pulling the skeins out of the water and everything, you're going to get some friction and breakage, and felting can happen. So
I have the swatch right here. I just have to walk around my table 1 second.
I have to say goodbye, guys, because my beehive mentor is here. So I've got to go put my suit on and do beehive things. So you guys have a good week. I'll see you Wednesday.
All right, bye.
Okay.
I have to go too,
I
I'm
don't
afraid.
know. This is my swatch, and I was really happy because I had never knit with it before, how it came out. And I don't know.
And how does it feel when you knit with it? Is it nice?
It's very soft. As I said, it's a 2-ply. I was knitting with a 3.25. This particular yarn shop has had different Ravelry designers knit with their thing. And when you buy a so-called kit, you are buying the skeins, but they send you to Ravelry to buy the pattern. And that. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's fingering weight, Karen?
Yeah, it's fingering.
Have you washed it?
No.
Oh, okay.
I just finished it. Yeah, I'm making
okay. It might be,
think
I'm just
Wait,
asking because it
I
was
know.
curling up.
But I have to show you what I did. I showed everybody before, but at the beginning, I got finished so fast with my,
Oh, look at you. You're all set for your third.
no, well, I already have knit with it. I knit the second pattern
Oh, over again. Okay.
over again because I have two. I
Okay.
thought that was a good way of spending my time. And that I also began winding the Findandy 3-ply. And I thought it was very much like Yarn 2, the coriander,
Mhm.
in terms.
Corriedale.
Yeah,
Corriedale.
Corriedale, sorry. Anyway, in terms of its bounciness, but what I liked about the Findandy, it was much whiter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Anyway.
the whites between breeds, the whites are different as well as the browns. So you get
Right.
different browns, different grays, and different whites. And hence the fact that we have like 22 kinds of yarn because they're all different.
Right.
Let's go to Susan. Let's take Susan's question and then we can chit chat later.
It's really not a question. I just wanted to point out, I had purchased a book called The Field Guide to Fleece by Deborah Robson and Carol Acarius. And this is the book. And I just want to thank you, Anne, for bringing it to life because I've gone through it and I've looked at it and I carried it to Rhinebeck with me last year. But your discussion about the sheeps, all the different sheep and the different yarns that we're working with, I'm flipping to each one and it's just, it really is so much more meaningful. They've got great pictures and facts in a real readable way. I don't know if anyone else has purchased this book, and you seem to know it. Do you know this book?
I have it. Yeah, I have it.
Oh, I've looked at that book. It's on my wish list. I saw it at the library or read it from the library. And I wondered about getting it. So you like it?
Wonderful to sit here, and she's named so many more sheep breeds that beyond what we're working with. And I just keep going to those pages, and it just really is a pleasant experience. Thank you.
There are several of those type of books out there. I will try this week to compile a list for us so you can know what to look for on Amazon. I mean, I have some favorites. I have an older book that's not in print anymore that I just love. And of course I always say this, but the internet is really a great place to do this kind of research because these books it's kind of like knitting patterns in magazines. They have to be really brief. They have to cut stuff out. They can't tell you everything because that would be a book for each sheep. And there are 1,400 breeds of sheep. So the internet really has a lot of stuff out there. And the things to look for on the internet are papers put out by agricultural departments at universities, papers put out by the United Nations agricultural arm, which is the acronym is escaping me at the moment, but the United Nations has an enormous agricultural website that has papers from people all over the world about different breeds of fiber producing animals, because textiles are a really, really important commodity on the world market for all countries. There isn't a nation that doesn't in some way rely on textiles for their economy, or at least part of it. And so everyone the world over has a stake in a healthy planet that supports healthy animals and healthy textile production. So there are papers by people in China about woolly mammoths, and there's just really, really cool stuff out there. So in addition to like sources like the fiber field guide, which will introduce you to and give you a little appetizer taste of each thing. Do go out there and look for more, because if something is kind of catching your fancy or makes you curious, the internet really is full of some great sources to fill in the gaps that those books cannot provide. You know, you can access so much about different cultures from reading about your favorite fibers from all different viewpoints and angles. You know, one of the reasons that textiles have such a big, you know, role in economics, in global economics, is that they affect every level of society. You know, just about everything you can think of involves textile in some way. Even like, even computers, you know, there are fibers out there that the markets on certain fibers have been cornered by companies who do fiber optics, for instance, because, or by companies that are creating really high-end fiber optics for global satellite systems and things like that, like stuff you would never even think of as a knitter. You know, that certain fibers have been known and used in industries that are way beyond what we think of as textile applications. So
here's another one. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's
No,
another
go
one. I
ahead.
don't know if you can you see there. It's the Fleece and Fiber Source Book.
Yeah, that's also by Deb Robeson, isn't it?
Oh, I gotta. Oh, it sure is. Deborah
Yeah.
Robson and Carol Carius.
Yeah.
And, you know, very fat, very big book. I
Right.
got borrowed from the library as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think Clara Parks has written a book about different fiber types. And
Yes.
Clara Clarks.
Yes, Clara Parks.
Mhm.
Parks. Okay.
With a K-E-S at the end.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I just want this. I want an encyclopedia that's like
Yeah.
2 fonts, 2 or 3 fonts. Oh yeah, the Book of Yarn. Yeah, the Knitter's Book of Yarn.
Oh yeah.
So I want to travel around
I
the
haven't
world, pet all the sheep. And
I know, I
write
haven't
about
had the motivation. I'm sorry, Ann, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I haven't had the motivation to really delve into this until these discussions. It's motivating me to
Oh,
learn.
I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Girls.
That was the Book of Yarn. Clara
The
Parks.
Book of Yarn by Clara Parks.
Okay.
It's the ultimate guide to choosing, using, and enjoying yarn.
Okay.
I'm gonna head out, guys. It was good seeing you all. See you next
Yeah.
time.
I'm running out of. I'm out of time too.
Bye.
But bye bye. So thanks, Susan.
I have a customer and it's 2:30. So
Yeah, we
I'm
gotta
really
go.
sorry.
That's all right.
I'll see you guys. I'll see you on Wednesday night.
Thanks. That was awesome.
All right.
Bye, Ann.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.